Aloha, I'm Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and this is Sustainable Hawaii at thinktech.com, streaming live educational and civic engagement on the Internet and Oceanic Channel 16. Today, my guest is Matt Lynch, System Sustainability Coordinator for the 10 campuses of the University of Hawaii. Matt is also founder of the Honolulu-based nonprofit Asia Pacific Center for Regenerative Design. He currently serves on the board of directors for Kahumana Organic Farm and Slow Food Oahu. He's also co-chair of the Measures Project, which I helped initiate for Hawaii Green Growth, their Aloha Sustainability Dashboard, bringing us metrics on sustainability progress across the state. Matthew's past work focused on implementing permaculture design principles in a broad range of community projects, from Mongolia to Australia and throughout the Pacific. His projects ranged from building rural community resilience through farmer trainings to sustainable economic development and catalyzing institutional change through developing public policy and collaborative leadership. Thank you for joining us today, Matt. I'm so glad you could be here.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are a regular at Think Tech because we have so much to mine in that incredible brain of yours.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here.
But today I really want to focus on the university and what is happening with all the different sustainability initiatives. I called the show today the 5 W's, so we're going to ask you who, what, where, when, and why.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
At UH. But before we get started, will you share with our audience how long you've been in this position?
Yep.
And give us a picture of how sustainability is orchestrated at UH.
So to answer the first question, I officially started this appointment in July of last year. However, I've been engaged with helping to formulate the system-wide sustainability strategy since the latter part of 2012, when I was engaged as a private consultant to help with some of that strategic planning. So although the sort of formalized Office of Sustainability is a relatively new aspect for the university has a long-standing history as a land, sea, and space grant institution of doing really cutting-edge research in environmental areas and in sustainability. So this most recent sort of developments are really sort of standing on the shoulders of all the giants that have come before us. There's been so much great work that's been done over the years, and now...
As I understand it, though, most of the work that has been done is in research and development. So what you're helping to bring is a formalized infrastructure or organizational structure.
Yeah, exactly. What we're talking about is institutionalizing sustainability values into how we actually operate the campuses. And there has been a lot of great work in that area, despite the sort of lack of systemic integration.
I know on the way here, I ran into Shauna Trevana, who's one of the early leaders in sustainability at UH.
Yep, and Shauna represents, so she was very involved with the Sustainable Saunders group, which was quite a few years ago now. Yeah. And so that's a really good example of this sort of waxing and waning of various sustainability initiatives that we've had over, especially the last couple of decades. You know, we have really passionate champions, be they students or staff or faculty or even administrative leadership, saying this is important to us. We want to lead the way and make an impact, and we're going to figure out how to cobble together resources to do that. And so as great as all of these initiatives have been, without that systemic integration into the sort of very DNA of our organization, the chances for those to build long-term momentum have been increased now.
Right.
Yeah.
So rather than one-off and individual efforts, what you're trying to do is make sure that there's a long-term integrated ethic and operational basis.
Yeah, right? Core business integration of sustainability into first our values, and then into actually how we operate the campus, and then of course into how we teach.
Have you had any pushback on this effort, or has it been open-minded and people are convinced of the need to do this?
Yep, that's sustainability is one of those things that it's really difficult to argue against.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
I remember the days when we had to explain what the word meant even.
True.
Yes.
And
So that's
so
great
I
to
have you
hear.
to thank.
Amongst many
Amongst
other
many,
people.
yeah. The case for sustainability is clear, and that's what's made this most recent sort of push to integrate and to institutionalize sustainability at the university so powerful, is that it has really been a sort of groundswell of grassroots support. So
That's terrific.
yeah. So in 2012, when I was helping with some of that first initial strategic planning initiative, we were thinking about exactly this question, like, why is it that we've seen this rise and fall of various initiatives? And in seeking to identify leverage points that we could work on, we realized there has been no formal commitment by the university as a system towards sustainability.
Right, I
So-
understand that recently, this year, the university actually changed its mission statement to include a sustainability statement.
That's correct. The executive sustainability policy, which is issued from the Office of the President, was formalized in February 2015.
Very
And
recent.
Very, very recently. But the interesting thing is that document had its origins in that strategic planning session in 2012, when we first, hey, there is no policy in place from a system level. So the idea was floated, let's convene sustainability practitioners and advocates from across the 10 campuses and present them with a draft sustainability policy and get their feedback. So we had over 150 people from all 10 campuses representing students, staff, faculty, administration, and community members. And we presented this draft and said, listen, what works about this, what doesn't? What's in here that you really like, what's not in here that should be? And we wound up with over 50 pages of feedback.
That's terrific. In that feedback, you had already representatives on each campus that were in official positions. Were they called sustainability coordinators, or was there a de facto
That's
leadership?
a really good question. I would say the vast majority of people that participated in that were on informal sort of, had formed an informal network. There have been some sort of formalized sustainability committees, but again, the vast majority was a sort of, the core group that was leading all of this was an ad hoc, informal, voluntary task force that really led the way and volunteered their time. Key to this was John Morton, Vice President for Community Colleges, stepped up to the plate and funded this. And beyond his mandate, just because
Right.
it was so important, and was able to find some seed funding, which was just enough to keep it all together with Scotch tape and bubble gum and all of that.
And
that we
so
could get there.
was this ad hoc committee mostly made up of students, or was it faculty-led?
That's a good. It was a fair blend of all the
Terrific.
different constituents. Yeah.
And did you also have participation from the outside community, outside the UH system?
In that core group, not as much, but there's sort of this core steering committee, I guess, for lack of a better term, and then our sort of inner circle, right, that was advising. And much of that group had strong connections with the community, so we certainly sought
Terrific.
that
So you
input.
see the ripple effect of what you're doing at the university out into the broader community.
It's really neat to see that from that room, which had maybe 24 of us, now we're coming up to our 4th annual Sustainability Summit. That document that was really written by the people for the people has now gone through 19 additional drafts since I started in July of
My
last year,
goodness.
and has now been formalized by the president. And the Board of Regents, actually in 2014, responded to very coordinated and strong student testimony, who coordinated a sort of statewide network of students to show up at a Board of Regents meeting in Kauai. And at the end of that meeting, early in 2014, the Board of Regents unanimously amended their policy to specifically articulate sustainability as a priority for the institution.
And is that part of the mission statement? What is the UH mission statement?
That's a good
that
question. I
includes
should probably know that by heart.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for putting me on the spot there. I'll put that in my notes to
Okay.
memorize that. It's the policy is a sort of the guiding operating principles, essentially.
Mhm.
And Board of Regents policy tends to be this sort of broad aspirational terms, right? I guess that would be more akin to the mission. The executive level policy, which comes from the Office of the President, that has a little more detail. So for example, the Board of Regents policy in 2014 broadly committed us to the aspirational goals of carbon neutrality by 2050, of local food self-sufficiency, and of—
By 2050 as well?
So that is, there was no deadline on that one. It was just sort of named that we want to make progress in the area of local food procurement. And it was essentially a one-page document. So very broad, very aspirational, but most importantly, put a stake in the ground. This is important to us.
Did it also include greenhouse gas emission targets?
Well, that's the carbon neutrality is sort of enfolded in it. So now we're going to have
any
to—
targets by 2050 being greenhouse gas neutral from
Yes.
a baseline of?
So the broad is just carbon neutral, which means that we've reduced our greenhouse gases as much as possible, and we've either found ways that we can offset whatever emissions are remaining by actively sequestering carbon through replanting of forests or whatnot on our existing lands, or through carbon offset credits, which works similarly.
And is that to the baseline of the greenhouse gas emission goals for the state, which is, I believe, 1998 level, or is it I think I read it's a 2008 level for the UH, right?
That's a really good question. We actually have not started to dive into that.
Okay.
What has taken our immediate focus is the net zero energy by 2035 mandate that was developed in conjunction with the state legislature this year. And, you know, just a comment on sort of carbon neutrality and greenhouse gas reductions, it can be a really abstract notion when we talk about reducing carbon emissions. Yes, it's completely important. I am concerned about climate protection and minimizing our harmful impacts and maximizing our positive impact. So to the extent that we focus on the immediate action steps that are going to get us to reducing that impact, for example, reducing our waste, being more efficient with our water, being more efficient with our energy use, figuring out ways to minimize our impact through our transportation fleet, and so on and so forth. Those are all stepping stones along the way that will get us closer to our carbon neutral target, right?
So in other words, you're saying rather than focus on this more ephemeral concept that people have a hard time grasping, particularly with regard to the numbers and targets, you want to focus on the very specific project-oriented impacts we can make today.
Yeah, what I'm saying is I want to focus on both and in the immediate short term on the practical, applicable things that everyday people are going to understand.
Right.
And while we're doing that, we're simultaneously using that work and what we're learning there to inform the broader strategy of how we're going to achieve that carbon neutrality mandate.
That sounds extremely efficient and in particular with regard to community participation, it gives us all a means of grasping what we could do. What are some of the specific projects that you are looking at and or have completed?
Yep, so we're a startup organization within the broader institution.
Right.
So my immediate task, when I got on the ground in July of last year, we did not have the formalized policy yet. So from July to February, that was my sole purpose in life, was to get this policy in, hence the 19 additional drafts as it needed to get vetted.
Which is actually a very short period of time when it comes to moving a huge boat on any kinds of policy changes. 10 campuses is like a big ship turning its screws very slowly, right?
It's true, it's all relative. And I really never understood the impact of policy work until I landed here and I started to seek to identify these leverage points. And so to put it into perspective, the Board of Regents amending their policy to include sustainability, only a one-pager, right? The last time they amended their policy was to specifically articulate Native Hawaiian studies as a priority for the institution.
Wow, that was quite a while ago.
Exactly. Now, if you go back, what is that, 2 decades ago?
At least.
And look at the progress that was made from that tiny seed that was planted with a simple policy statement, right? And so that's where we are in the genesis of this. The soils that we're working with have been really, they're prepped, they're fertile, they're busting, they're ready to flourish. And that's the sort of landscape that we're working on. And now we've finally got that seed planted. And so we're thinking about how can we make sure, especially in these early days, we can put together the supporting infrastructures to ensure that it can grow into this mighty tall koa tree.
I'd like to share the schematic that you have of that
Sure.
infrastructure and the challenge. I think we can put that up there. Maybe walk us through that very, very complicated diagram.
Sure. So you'll notice there, between all the lines, you can probably recognize the standard command control org chart that all of our institutions are made up of, right? Be you public, private, nonprofit, government, even your community board is made up from that similar command control hierarchy. And you can also see what I refer to as the adaptive operating system.
Mm-hmm.
That's that series of formal and informal networks that you can see represented by the sort of circles. And so these are ways that we as humans have come up with organizing ourselves. They're human operating systems.
Mm-hmm.
Each of us participates in both of these operating systems simultaneously. However, when they are not strategically integrated, they are unable to match their full potential. So command control is really good at achieving scaled efficiencies, taking a directive from the highest levels and implementing that at massive scale. What it's less able to do is to create conditions for ideas from lower in that org chart to emerge, arise, be built upon, and then be implemented utilizing those scaled efficiencies, right? If it's a...
And that is your biggest challenge, I bet.
That is one of the biggest challenges. I'd say that really the social architecture it's my sort of self-described moniker of what I do, right? So the technical solutions, much of the technical solutions exist to solve many of the technical problems that we have. How do we improve our energy efficiency? Well, we can change light bulbs. We can change out to higher efficiency HVAC systems, so on and so forth. The list goes on and on and on. What gets in the way of connecting these solutions to the challenges is the social friction of our organizations. And so,
which people do whole PhD theses on organizational change management.
Is that something you've done?
No, it is not. But it sure sounds like you have.
I certainly have not done a PhD in it. I'm sort of, as a practitioner, I'm on the ground and learning in the trenches as we go.
Well, I want to hear more about specific projects that you have managed to push through the system.
Sure.
When we come back from our break.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. This is Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and Sustainable Hawaii will be right back.
Aloha, this is Alice V. Hagen from ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show is a bi-weekly show on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. We invite interesting people, entrepreneurs, fascinating leaders who contribute to the social economic well-being of our state. Please tune in to my show, Business Education Spotlight, ThinkTech Hawaii, bi-weekly, Thursday, 3 to 4 p.m. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island. I work in the ER there. But on Tuesday afternoons, I get to come and spend 45 minutes to an hour with Jay Fidel and the ThinkTech staff. They're terrific professionals. They help us to bring some of the leading cutting-edge topics here across our state to you. So you can join us at our show on healthcare in Hawaii to talk with leaders from across all the spectrum of health in our state, or you can join us for any other show where we talk about economic development or tourism, or some really eclectic programs too. So really, we'd love to see you here on our show. Thanks for joining us and thanks for supporting us.
Hi, we're back at Sustainable Hawaii. We're talking with Matt Lynch from the University of Hawaii, the Systems Sustainability Coordinator. And you were talking about some of the actual projects you've managed to get moving or build upon.
Sure. So we're starting with energy efficiency. Which we know from what has worked with other organizations or other institutions of higher education, because...
I think we have a picture of this one.
Oh, here we go. Where are we? Oh, this came from a student club. So this is Engineers for a Sustainable World. And what they have done is essentially hack together a solar cart. So this is a demonstration project. I think this has now actually been connected to an aquaponics project on campus so that they have a solar-powered pump.
And a solar cart is a movable solar power source.
So what you can't see under that first panel are the casters that this thing floats around upon. And it was literally rolled out and sort of rolled back in. And what's interesting here is that, like, this is a really good example of revisioning our campuses as a living laboratory, and really sort of, harnessing the inherent creativity and curiosity of our students to get together and solve some of the real world problems that are on our campus. This is, in the scheme of things, figuring out how to keep a aquaponics pump going. It's one of the smaller challenges that we have. But you don't need to have a massive challenge in order to stimulate that
Innovative
creativity. Exactly.
thinking. So that solar cart can power how much on campus and what kind of
It's fairly
need?
small, and I'm not sure of the specs on it. But what's most exciting to me about this is it came from the students. So they just kind of got together and said, I wonder if we could, and one thing led to another, and before you know it.
And it's an engineering hands-on project.
And so now this club is starting to expand to multiple campuses, and they're looking at connecting with other student groups. Hey, we're engineers. We like to build stuff, right? So what can we build for you, right? And this is one of the most exciting aspects of what's going on, because I'm often introduced as, this is Matt, he's the sustainability guy.
Yeah.
And then the response I get is, I recycle, or usually I bring my water bottle, but I forgot it today, and da-da-da-da. And sustainability is not about being the resource police. I am not the resource policeman. We all are so entangled in this global system that we've created that we can each do what we can, right, in our small way to contribute to the solution. In my mind, sustainability is really about innovation, and sustainability is about harnessing the entrepreneurial creativity of our generations and applying that ingenuity towards solving these massive challenges that are, defining our generation, right?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I like to talk about often, is that we have the ability within our private sector to solve so many of these issues. Where people argue that it's a matter of funding. We don't have enough money to do things sustainably. And that's rubbish. Right? It doesn't take a lot of taxpayer investment, although that is helpful to move things beyond the conceptual stage to launch projects.
Yeah. Well,
we have plenty of business acumen and investment dollars that improve corporate bottom lines in the process of finding solutions.
Yeah, and so that takes us back to my original tangent about energy efficiency being the economic engine that can really drive all of our sustainability initiatives. So just as any business owner, if you had say 10% profit margin, right? Any dollar that you save from energy efficiency or water efficiency or waste reduction, whatever it is the equivalent of $10 in revenues. It's a very compelling economic case to make for sustainability. So really, helping people to understand that this is just good business sense.
That's right.
In addition to all of the other multiple benefits that arise from it, the social and the environmental benefits that can also arise from a sustainability core integration into your business, right?
And I know one way you've been saving resources and as a result accumulating revenue for the university system is through installing PV, not just in the solar carts. And you sent us a visual of one of the PV projects at UH.
Yeah.
Tell us what that one is about.
Here we go.
Are those students actually installing them, and is that part of the curriculum?
That's a good question. I don't know where that panel is on one of our campuses. This was from an article that was talking about the carbon neutrality commitment by 2050 and the net zero commitment by 2035. So I am often asked, when the 2035 net zero mandate came down, I got an email from one of the county sustainability coordinators that basically said, "Good God, man, get going." So I'm often asked, how are you going to tackle that? And the simple answer is, it's twofold. One is to reduce our energy use, and then the second is to then right-size our renewables portfolio. Right?
Say that again, because that's a key message that a lot of our audience really needs to grasp.
Sure. So the first step to achieving our net zero energy mandate is to reduce our energy consumption by implementing high efficiency or energy efficiency upgrades. And then the second is then to develop your renewables portfolio so that it is right-sized to meet that need. So if we just looked at our energy consumption right now and said, that's how much energy we need to generate for our renewable portfolio to meet the net zero mandate, well, we put ourselves in the interesting position of potentially overbuilding a system, which has the opposite effect in terms of behavior change, because if I'm generating more electricity than I can use,
exactly,
my incentive is to run my AC a little longer, right?
And it's one of the issues we've had statewide, is that a lot of folks have felt that the cost of renewable energy, particularly when they want to put solar PVs on their roofs, is much greater than the return on their investment is over a longer period of time. And what's actually needed is to be able to reduce their energy through efficiency, so they need less solar panels. They bring down the cost, and we're not actually contributing to higher energy consumption.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a very key message that I'm sure you're integrating into the curriculum at UH as well. How does the whole sustainability program incorporate on the learning side and through the classroom?
So Kapilani Community Colleges has developed what they call an S designation. So as you're looking through your potential courses or prospective courses that you might sign up for, you might see W, which denotes a writing intensive course. There's now this S designation, which represents a sustainability focused course. So it might even be an English 101 class, but if it has an S designation, the writing and reading material might be around exploring various issues on sustainability, right?
That's terrific.
So this offers an opportunity for interested faculty to integrate sustainability learning competencies into their curriculum, no matter what the discipline.
Is that one of the changes that's happened this year?
That has actually been ongoing for the better part of a decade.
Oh, wow.
One thing that has happened this year, which really started around, at the university at least, around 2012, is UH West Oahu's Bachelor of Applied Sciences program in Sustainable Community Food Systems. It's one of the most exciting programs out there.
And I believe it's the only one of its kind in the U.S., right?
Maybe. I know that Dr. Albie Miles was brought over from UC.
University of California? Or
University of California. I'm going to butcher this. I'm sorry, Albie. I think it was Berkeley. Might have been Santa Cruz. I think it's Santa Cruz, actually. And they have a very robust agroecology program, and have over a decade of sort of seeing what the impact of creating this sort of academic and intellectual hotbed, right? As these people graduate and start to go out and participate at various levels in the food system, from policy to producer level to the bakers and the butchers and the candlestick makers and everywhere in between, that area is experiencing this transformation around their food system, right?
How exciting. I'd also like to hear about some specific examples of that when we come back from our break. I'm with Matt Lynch. This is Sustainable Hawaii, and we'll be right back.
Aloha, my name is Justina Spiritu, and I'm the co-host of Hawaii Farmers Series. This is my co-host, Matthew Johnson, and you can catch us every Thursday at 4 p.m. at thinktechhawaii.com. What do we talk about, Matt?
So on Hawaii Farmers Series, we're going to be bringing on the farmers and also supporter of farmers, including restaurants, caterers, as well as government supporters and nonprofits, to hear their background stories and understanding our local ag community just a little bit better.
Yeah, essentially there's a lot more that goes into farming and the local food community beyond just producing the food. And we want to feature and get the background story on all these folks and see how we all work together as a community. So join us every Thursday. Aloha.
Hi, we're back with Matt Lynch at Sustainable Hawaii, and he was about to give me some concrete examples of the food policy, sustainable food policy.
I think, hope it's not the sustainable food policy, because we're still developing that. It's
Okay.
the Sustainable Community Food Systems program. I'd love to give some examples of what that looks like in action and practice.
Okay.
So I was recently at an open house out at West Oahu campus, where it's a brand new campus, as you know, it's still being built. At what will be the future PICO or center of that campus is a beautiful garden
Oh,
that is
wonderful.
integrated into that curriculum that the students take care of, and it's a part of that applied sciences, that practical aspect of that coursework. So really getting in and understanding, like, how do you grow food? How do you cultivate soil? How do we protect soil? And all of the different aspects that are involved with that. And at this open house, we had some of the high school career guidance counselors from schools that had very strong ag programs. So there was Lelehua, Kahuku, Waianae, and Waipahu high schools there.
And they have the food community gardens within the schools. I forget the name of the program.
Right, I-9 schools.
I-9 schools,
yeah.
thank you.
And so these, I-9 schools is more sort of intermediate, elementary and intermediate,
Okay.
and now in the high schools, these four have very strong ag programs.
Trying to churn out potential future farmers?
You know, so the joke that day was like, you know, ag classes are kind of like the new shop class, kind of where like all the students that, like I would probably wind up there because I'm just, you know, I'm more interested in getting my hands dirty than I'm putting my nose in a book, you know? And so in those communities, when you think about it, you know, my family's actually from Wahiawa here. So my mom is Lelehua grad. I'm fourth generation Filipino, descended from plantation workers. And of my generation, I'm one of the few that still is engaged in growing part of my own food. I'm a very avid gardener and farm in other people's backyards when I can. And so what is interesting is you have, it's almost disrespectful for me to go and be a farmer. And so there's this interesting conflict with
Why
this
is that
generation.
disrespectful?
Because my grandpa sacrificed, right, long and hard, you know, working with his hands in the soil so that our generation could have more options than he did, right? So it's this
That's an
interesting
interesting
tension,
dilemma, right.
And so what would make my parents and my grandma and grandparents proud is being able to create a right livelihood for myself, to be able to create an economic livelihood, right?
And if that were with the soil, that would be perfectly fine, but traditionally it has not been.
Right.
And you're trying to make a change.
Currently, it's not. I mean, it's very difficult to make a living, especially on Oahu, as a farming producer. The cost of land and access to land and water are frankly almost prohibitive. So, you know, if we're wanting to get our youth interested in farming, or let's broaden that and let's say career pathways in creating a sustainable food system, then we need to be able to equip them with the tools and resources and pathways necessary to connect them so that they are able to create their own livelihoods
And
at
that's
whatever
not-
level of the food system.
Exactly, and that's a very important point. So when you talk about the food system, it's value-added products, it's marketing, it's distribution, it's nutrition,
Yep.
it's everything to do with sustainable food and nutrition, right?
Exactly, and there's even, you know, other aspects, research, right? There is a huge opportunity for sort of agricultural entrepreneurship, right?
Mhm.
To be able to help to catalyze that transformation that's necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know one of the other projects that has been very successful at UH that also has a potential ripple effect in the community is the inter-socket connector. I forget the name
Oh, the
of that.
IBIS, IntelliSocket.
IBIS,
Yeah.
IntelliSocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So this is some technology, locally developed technology, that essentially helps you to manage your plug loads. So it's a little box that you plug into your existing socket, and we've got over 1,000 of these deployed across 3 campuses now, collecting data and telling us who our energy hogs are.
So
at the
that
plug
photo that
level.
was just up is the data collection screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what is that data? How is it used in
Yep.
order to improve our energy consumption?
So one thing that we learned, and I don't have specific numbers on this, but just in general terms, we learned that the vending machines that are on campus are enormous energy users. Right?
Much like our refrigerators.
Yes, exactly. And so these sockets actually have the ability where I could, from my laptop, turn those off. Now, there's obviously, people are not going to be happy if I start turning off their mini fridges or their computers, right? But the technology gives us that ability to expand our own sensory capacity so that we know and we can identify opportunities to realize energy efficiency, to save energy through the better management of our electricity use at the socket level.
And actually, there's so many of us want to do more,
Yeah.
but we don't know how, or it's so cumbersome in our daily lives that are so ridiculously overactive and overmanaged. We need easy tools to be able to make the right choices.
Yeah.
And I know that the UH has implemented this across the campus and wants to roll this out to the community. And you shared with us a video about the socket. Maybe we could take a look at that.
Startup IBIS Networks has installed more than 1,000 smart electrical sockets, called IntelliSockets, across 3 University of Hawaii campuses: Windward Community College, UH Manoa, and UH Hilo. State officials gathered at Windward Community College recently to learn more about the innovative pilot project.
What can be done at the university can very much be, ported into any other type of organization within our state, the DOE, DAGs, anywhere else. The UH is the great test bed for this type of technology.
IBIS network sockets and energy management software help to control and reduce electricity usage from devices such as printers, copiers, and televisions, almost any device that can be plugged in. Sockets can be programmed to turn on and off. Each IntelliSocket also gives a real-time data reading every 15 seconds, which can be viewed and controlled from a mobile device such as an iPad. If all recommendations are adopted, IBIS believes that UH's pilot project could save up to $200,000 over 5 years.
We think that there's potential to save a pretty significant amount of energy and money for the university.
At Windward Community College, the Sustainability Club initiated the project, and it's become the focus for student research into energy waste and heat mapping.
I would like people to know that what's important to us is being sustainable, not just for our school, but for our community. Like I said, we would love for us to be a model for the community.
The 3-campus pilot project was made possible with financial support from Hawaii Energy and the Energy Accelerator.
Growing these kinds of companies in Hawaii takes a community. It takes people like UH and our business community believing in companies and stepping up to help them and work together, and that's really what we're seeing in this project.
I think that this successful project will have implications in the home and the office. Plug loads is a growing aspect of energy use, whether in businesses or in homes. I think that's going to be a new frontier in energy efficiency and conservation.
The pilot project also has benefits in the classroom. Professor David Krupp is planning to incorporate lessons into Windward Community College's curriculum.
To me, the big take-home thing out of all of this is the university being the example that the community can follow.
Great to know how our university is working to solve some of our problems.
That was fun. I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah. Now, this has a long-term development before it can be rolled out actually to the community.
Right, so it's a pilot project, and I think it's a really good example of sort of the potential that our campuses hold as incubators for innovation, where we can test things out on a smaller scale. We're currently wrapping up the pilot phase so that we can look at what it might look like to roll it out in more broader terms on our campuses. And then, we can sort of hopefully lead the way. That way, once we've been able to successfully realize energy savings through this homegrown innovative technology, I might add, then it makes it easier for other people to similarly adopt. Yeah.
And I understand a lot of the community colleges, the ones I'm particularly familiar with are Honolulu Community College and Maui College, are doing a lot of green job training and churning out the kinds of graduates that can do this kind of application, and also on a vocational level to be able to install and maintain systems like this.
Yeah, so there's
is that part of the whole sustainability coordinator agenda?
My agenda is to support, my agenda is to support all of the amazing initiatives that are going on and to really be a network coordinator so that we can learn from each other, right? And as an organization, make better decisions and work more effectively together, right? Because we're all so busy doing what we're doing, where we're at with what we can.
Right.
Well, where are the opportunities to share best practices and lessons learned from across the system so that as a group we can move forward more effectively and more efficiently.
And I know part of the job of the university is to share those best practices outside of the campuses. What are some of the ways you're doing that?
You know, there's a really interesting group of upcoming researchers. And again, I'm just sort of highlighting it already existing. I'm not by any means taking credit for all of this amazing work. But this group of researchers has been working with some communities. And so recognizing that the way that research has been done in the past may have had some gaps in terms of leaving the community sort of, you know, feeling like the work had not been reciprocated or whatnot, or the value had not been reciprocated, right? The sort of researcher that comes in, researches, writes a paper, and then is off with their career. They sort of went deep with the community and said, well, are working now to establish what this community research protocols might look like, right? Which is an enormously rich conversation to have. I mean, our role as a community partner, what are the ways that we can enhance and enrich that? And I think it starts with, you know, just talking and having these conversations.
And I know one of the other things you do is you have a sustainable higher education summit.
That's correct, yeah. So that happens annually. In March 10, 11, 12 of next year will be the 4th annual Sustainability in Higher Ed Summit. And it's the time of year where we can connect across all 10 campuses and get everybody together that's working on sustainability.
Is it also additional other schools involved, not just the UH?
Yeah, you know, the HPU and
Hawaii Pacific University.
Yes, thank you. Hawaii Pacific University and Chaminade have participated in past. And I would love to be able to build this out where we can have a much richer and more deep engagement and participation. Currently, we're sort of really focused on we need to get our house straight. So that's much of our focus. There are opportunities, though, for institutional collaboration that we're exploring, especially with like wrestling through, for example, strategic energy management at a large institutions. We'll face some of the same similar contexts and challenges that a large institution like Kamehameha Schools may face, and they have also hired a sustainability manager. And so we're in conversation and comparing notes so that we can support each other and learn together more effectively, right? And bring these lessons back to our respective institutions.
And as part of being the co-chair for the Measures Project for the Aloha Plus Challenge Sustainability Dashboard, you're also working at the state level and sharing some of this. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that interconnects with your work at the university?
Sure. So the Aloha Plus Challenge State Sustainability Dashboard it gives us sort of more resolution on managing different metrics towards sustainability. So we've populated the targets, goals, and metrics for clean energy, waste reduction, and natural resource management. Will come online shortly. The 3 remaining target areas are local food, smart sustainable communities, which is the built environment and the economic environment, and then green jobs and education. So again, my role is supportive and being that sort of hub, that network coordinator and facilitator.
And you're a great facilitator.
Oh, thank you.
Because you did a great job at our last Measures meeting.
Oh, that was fun. It's really, when there's so many passionate and engaged people, that really makes
it really is a unique
pleasure.
And exciting group of people involved in Hawaii Green Growth and the Measures Project.
Yeah, and thank you for your input to get that started.
Oh, it's absolutely delightful to see how you all have taken on the banner and just run with it.
We're preparing the university for engagement with helping to define what's important for us to measure in terms of green jobs and education in 2017 when we are equipped to approach that. Because
and the dashboard is going to be available online with all of these measures. Some of it is already available, some will be rolling out, and it's important for the entire state to be able to watch that and make sure our taxpayers' dollars, as well as our investment dollars in the private sector, are being well utilized.
Absolutely. If we're not measuring it, how can we manage it, right?
Exactly.
And so key to that is to make sure that we measure what matters, and that's why it's so important to get such broad and diverse feedback and input.
And make sure that the public is holding us accountable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Matt, you have been a delightful guest, as usual, extremely informative. We're very excited about the work you and all of your colleagues at the university are doing, and we're going to keep tabs and have you come back and tell us more.
Thanks so much.
But that's it for today, and I want to thank you and thank our audience. And right before you leave, though, I want you to look into that camera right there and tell us, this one right here, and just tell us one thing you would challenge us to do as an audience.
Well, one thing I would invite everyone to do as an audience is to start at your back door. And so whatever area of sustainability it is that you may have an interest in, explore that. And I guarantee you that what you will find is a rich world of possibilities and empowerment, because each of us in our own small way can contribute to creating the brighter, positive alternative future that we all know is possible.
Thank you.